suppose we are in quite a good spot for Star Wars software. The films, not so much. My name is Couch Coop and I review single-player, local co-op, split-screen, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 and Gamepass video games. This is LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga playing in the background, and it was recently reviewed by myself. Split-screen, local co-op and absolutely crammed full of Star Wars nostalgia. It takes you right the way through all of the films from the beginning, year dot, right through to some of the Phantom Menace and newer material. Quite a big piece of work. And also, quite recently, in the last couple of seconds, we've just had a trailer drop for a new rebuild LEGO Star Wars game, which I will link in the description. I've chosen 5 pretty much AAA games that are all available on 8th and 9th generation systems. This LEGO game being the first official entry, but I won't go on about it too much. I will link the full video for the split screen review in the description.
Shows destruction.
Let's move past the 6 years old catchment audience and look at something a little bit more adult focused, and again recently spoken about by myself, Squadrons. It was also released on the PSVR 1. Came out on normal flat screens as a port, but its true home was in VR.
Find them.
Upon replay, I've gone to it non-VR over on PC with those settings notched right up because I wanted to see some crisp, high resolution and some cool frame rates, something that you don't get on that original PSVR version. That jump in graphical fidelity didn't equal a sort of better playing experience at all. The game's VR version of all the missions, which were identical to its flat screen equivalent, are so immersive and so tailored for that headset that this is definitely worth playing only on that system. Squadrons also comes with some very good shortcuts and sort of simulator ease of life additions for the pad as opposed to using a stick, which is really cool for us sort of sim casuals. I think that makes sense. You can actually genuinely have a good time with this game on a normal controller, but I speak to people who are very much into the hot-ass setup and they have an incredible time with this. Combined with the VR, it's pretty unbeatable.
The Empire chose to destroy Alderaan in order to spread fear and douse the fires of rebellion.
It's campaign, single player. It does come with PvP arena matches, but the focus is really on that one-player content for me, and I was very pleasantly surprised of how much depth they go into with both playing as the Empire and being inside their ships and sort of TIE fighter lore. I loved that area of it, and that's your first introduction to the single-player content. It also holds back on ship variation. Until you're 1 or 2 hours into it, you get a choice of different fighter and loadout. This is really important. I feel the game craves a bit of depth on its almost shipbuilding RPG front, bolt-on guns, switching out ships prior to a mission, but that does come, and you do notice some different performances in some of the Rebellion and Empire craft. Having it off VR and at high settings is certainly noticeable, particularly the vistas, some of the skylines, and the details in the cutscenes and the planetary surfaces are unbelievably good. The game also performs top-notch 60 frames per second with everything up to maximum, but this is 1080 footage. But I feel it was definitely worth looking at off VR, and if you've never touched this game and you're a Star Wars fan, and you've got access to a headset, this should be the first place you go.
Well done.
It also holds back on its namesake, Squadrons. It doesn't give you the allocate option until later on after mission 3 or 4. You then have a team that you can send off to go and engage with something separate on the battlefield. It feels pretty cool. It feels like you're in a leadership role and you're certainly getting to fight some absolutely awesome Empire craft. Same thing goes when it switches out on the missions and you're back on the dark side. You also get to experience some incredible galactic battles.
Putting power to forward shields. All that damage and this thing still has teeth.
No wonder Talos took a beating just chasing it here. I wanted to see the Victorium go up in flames.
They friggin' nailed every sound from the films though, with all of the lasers and thrusters and engine noises. One of my fondest early VR memories is getting the chance to walk around an X-Wing fighter, and when you get in the cockpit you full 360 turn around and see R2-D2 in your cockpit making the little noises right behind you. It was a sensational moment for me, and it still holds really strong when I think about past VR experiences.
Beautifully done.
Let me hit you with ion weapons.
Yeah, you'll lose your controls, or worse.
Fives all over these buggers.
I think some of you will instantly recognize this game. Others will be like, wow, what's this? It's a third-person Star Wars shooter. Well, don't get too excited. It's the single-player content or the campaign for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, this game is notorious. It's got PvP online, and it ran into some enormous controversy with pay-to-win loot boxes and cards. I had to hit the reset button. EA got in loads of trouble. They got called out for it. It was a huge scandal years back.
Surprisingly complex. We'll do what I can to break things up, but no promises.
Back to my obsession with the Empire, and this game completely caters for playing as a TIE fighter general. You're also getting out of a rebellion jail at the beginning. You have to use one of the little drones. You sneak attacking people. It's also a third-person ARPG shooter, so to speak. So a couple of years of Returnal and Remnant from the Ashes, going back to this. It's like slow-mo. It's like New Game Minus. You are all over it. The poor guys don't stand a chance, but it is excellent. Getting to creep past undetected during a briefing was pretty damn cool.
Bring Alliance ships to the Galan system. With this ruse, we will divert the Empire's attention.
I think what I'm trying to get to is that this isn't redundant Star Wars content. It's actually quite damn good, and having it on a nice high setting spec with the PC as opposed to base level consoles, which was the last time I enjoyed this content, it's a bit of an eye opener on how good these graphics are for a game of its age. The thing with the Battlefront games is that their skirmish mode is kind of the selling point, which we will get to. And what a lot of people do with this, a little bit like Call of Duty, is maybe just leap straight online into those huge battles, because they were advertised in amazing iconic locations from the Star Wars series, and they're really what has always sold Battlefront. Offline single player content always took a bit of a back seat, and I feel that's a bit of a shame, and going back to it in 2024 has been really cool, and I'm also craving, fresh areas of the IP to explore, and this certainly dealt with that craving. It's not as good though as the single player content over on the original Battlefront, and that also offered all of it up in split screen, which we'll get to in a second. Another major selling point for the Battlefront series is the transition from foot soldier over to vehicle, and then in the air with Star Wars. Obviously you want those interstellar craft or even spacecraft, and that does get delivered to you, but again a lot of that is removed for the local co-op. Back to the transition and change point with vehicle type, the flying should not be this good in this game on a Star Wars front. Those TIE fighters, the tight turns, the noises, the controls, how quickly it all sinks in, and how it's external as well. You're not trapped inside a cockpit. You can see the lasers flying past you and all the debris that you're just about missing. It's completely flawless, and I have said this before, I cannot believe how good they made this mode within a Battlefront 2 game.
Destruction is the true face of the rebellion. It's the reason we've been fighting so long.
We tried to make them afraid, we only made them angry.
Someone told me once that rebellions are built on hate. I never stopped believing it.
I'm not joking, your eyeballs will start aching. This game's got outlandish specials in it that really have not much to do with Star Wars canon and technology, and one of them is to give the laser cannons like an adrenaline blast, and you basically send over a green lightsaber in space. It's unreal how the boost works and the turns and how many enemies you can take down. That doesn't even get to the PvP side of it. Again, against Squadrons, I was really amazed at the quality of this.
Agent Miko, let's take out these bombers.
Fighter down!
Here's the meat and potatoes for the Battlefront series. Huge battles, iconic settings, you get to play as the droids, there's big vehicles everywhere, you get a load of kills, you get rewarded, you can come on as a hero character. All that stuff is just normal for the model. It doesn't really build on me wanting to play as a Star Wars game, but getting to use all of this equipment, which incidentally is not available for local co-op, which we will get to. I know it's the second time I've said that. My point being, this is a whole nother chunk that we don't really need to touch on if we want to dig into cool Star Wars stuff within the Battlefront game. Let's get over to the local co-op. I cannot believe you are still talking about this game. Probably old enough to remember the original versions of all of this system and model, and you could essentially fly around in local co-op while someone else was, I don't know, manning a gun or walking around in a trench. That's just all gone. It's kind of foot soldiers or nothing with the local, and that one really hurt me. As you've seen, that Frostbite engine is not bad at all, and vehicles and all that sort of fun is not enjoyed when you've got someone on local with you. It's a bit of a heartbreaker. However, and if you know about my local co-op review of this game, they gave us split flying. Full local co-op PvP as well, so you can do a co-op mission, take down a Star Destroyer or something, or you can go up against your mate and pick him out of all of the fighters and just chase him down until the cows come home. Hours of fun for me, hours. Feels like hours, mate, that you've been talking about Battlefront 2. Well, we're nearly there. This Skywalker combat in the game, ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to start swinging a lightsaber around, then you need to be playing these next two games from Respawn. We are going over to Fallen Order, just after this bit of amazing control and battlefield dominance.
Listen, Master. Trust only in the Force.
Okay, let's talk about Cal. Let's talk about Fallen Order, the Jedi game that's the first in 2 of the releases from Respawn. Fallen Order is billed as a Souls-like, meaning it's got quite a harsh restart system. You got to sit down and get to the meditation points, and it's also sort of third-person slasher ARPG style with a focus button and a number of different move options and a lot of influence from the Force push and slowdown mechanics. It's pretty detailed and one of my more favourite modern Star Wars games. It is just as good, if not better than the Force Unleashed first one. The second Unleashed wasn't that great, I seem to remember. This is really perfect canon for the lightsaber combat and using the Force powers from a third-person perspective. But this one is just full of adventure, amazing vistas and planets and characters. The whole series is kind of becoming stronger and stronger, and this is where it all started for me, obviously, because it was the first game, but I've been going back to it, been looking at it again on PC. Was a free PlayStation 5 upgrade, extremely welcome. Oh no. Oh, we've got sucked into the pan.
Racy there?
Because of the game's slight age, I can run this at top settings over on PC, 1080 and 60 frames. Damn, is it smooth. Lighting looks amazing. Doesn't come with ray tracing, but it's such a beautiful game. So much care went into this. Thinking about it, they had to make an impact on the scene. This was big pressure for Respawn. Apex was amazing and making EA an incredible amount of money, I should imagine. And the Titanfall series also absolutely epic. It was a first person, but you also slipped to that third person when going into the mech. So they did have experience in this area, and it was just so well utilized with the Star Wars IP. also a frickin' Souls-like, and it's got to compete with stuff like Lords of the Fallen or even the Lies of P. That's something I'm playing all the time, and that was why I was interested to go back to Fallen Order after all that water under the bridge to see if it still feels like a fresh Souls-like or even is worthy of bearing that name, and it totally is. The game is damn difficult also. I'm playing it on master difficulty and it's teaching me a few lessons, I'll tell you that, Padawan.
Fire at will! Shoot him!
Some of its keys to success are in this world building. I think die-hard Star Wars fans were really welcomed and surprised at how much effort went into making sure everything looked spectacular on these planets. That goes for the indigenous life and the variation in stormtrooper and combat type and even weaponry. Totally amazing on that front. Those same die-hard fans speak of a really cool story also, and the villain variation with the 9 sisters, all that crazy stuff going on with that almost separate section of the galaxy. Pretty cool, and it really does explore how massive that universe is, and it sort of folds in some of the more recent lore and changes. I'm not too sure how much involvement Kathleen Kennedy had with that at LucasArts.
That was close.
I want to make sure I hammer home that the game was a complete success, and as a Souls-like or third-person ARPG fan, it was also awesome for me. It's something I would very much recommend if you've played the next game only. This is definitely worth going back to, particularly because of its age, and you can get it going on some half-decent spec.
Just one hit.
Figured if we started with a pan, get him out the way early doors with this one. It is Jedi Soul Survivor, as I've started calling it, and this is just every itch scratched. This is a perfect sequel to Fallen Order, and I've reviewed it in full literally a couple of weeks ago. If that, I'll put the link in. So not too much detail here, more of a celebration. This is potentially a Terminator 2 situation, or an Aliens situation, or a Street Fighter 2 situation where there is nothing wrong with the improvements and they've kept those building blocks in the right place. Combat is excellent, smooth. The game's a bit thirsty, graphically cannot run it at the same specs as Fallen Order, unfortunately.
Look alive! Don't let him intimidate you!
More weapon depth, more force powers, a bigger hub, loads more NPCs, cooler planets, cooler levels, an earlier double jump, crazy villains, sub-boss, mini indigenous life bosses. You are left wanting for nothing. You can even pull a guy onto his own grenade. One of the coolest things I did that morning.
I'll break your guard.
It also explores an NPC friendly fighting with you a little bit more. It introduces it to you at the beginning with a vet style jetpack dude, but you get a really cool companion. Sort of halfway through that campaign, it doesn't shy back from having more than one player on screen, even though it's a single player experience. See some of that in the Wulong and the Nier games. If it's done okay, it feels pretty cool, pretty empowering to have someone help and support you in dangerous situations, as opposed to putting you in them.
Let's take it down together.
I'm with you, Jedi.
Are you, by putting this at the end of your video, saying that it's potentially the best Star Wars video game available on 9th and 8th gen systems? Yeah, it really is amazing for me because I'm such a huge Souls fan. I also love me some third-person ARPG. This game sits at the top of that pile because of those requirements. All those other games, like Squadrons mentioned, might be more your thing, and that's cool. It's kind of a little bit of something for everybody at the moment with Star Wars video games. Apart from RTS, can you get on the case with that? Even Dune's got one. Was of course Couch Coop, lover of pans and all things local co-op and single player. I will of course see you down there.